further strike action by the guards and from next week train drivers. Plus today, news of a ban on their overtime will bring the network to a standstill. In fact, Southern says it will.
Well, in addition to 9 days of strikes led by the union ASLEF, drivers have been ordered not to carry out any extra work. The overtime ban begins next Tuesday, coinciding with 3 days of strikes by guards and the RMT union.
Well, Southern Rail runs routes from Ashford International and Tunbridge and from places like Hastings, Eastbourne, Lewes and Brighton. It then heads up to Crawley, Gatwick and into London.
The row is over the role of the guards on the trains and the move to get drivers to open and close doors. The union says it's a big safety concern. Southern says it's nothing new.
So what now for long-suffering commuters and for businesses and local communities through Christmas and the New Year? And what are the MPs doing to sort it all out? In a moment I'll be speaking to a union leader. First, Richard Slee.
The train now arriving on Platform 1 is now much more likely to be cancelled in the latest round of strikes on Southern Rail. After 18 months of disruption, weary passengers are now facing 18 days of strikes in the run-up to Christmas and into January.
Southern Rail, Southern Rail.
The unions are protesting against Southern's plan to force drivers to operate train doors. The RMT and ASLEF say that's unsafe, a claim rejected by the company, with long-suffering passengers caught in the middle.
It's been utter chaos this morning coming from London to come here. Trains delayed. It's just going on too far.
Do you blame the company or the unions?
It's hard to say. I think they're both to blame.
I wish that the government would step in and sort it out, because I'm just sick to death of it.
It's going on for a long time. Are you getting frustrated as a passenger?
Sometimes I am. But then at other times it seems that when they're on strike, it seems to run a little bit better, you know. So.
Southern Rail has been successful in providing a reasonably decent service on previous strike days, but that's now going to be different because of a ban on overtime, which the company was relying on to fill the gaps.
The fact that the drivers are now becoming involved is upping the ante, and it just looks like it's becoming more and more bitter on both sides. So it's very difficult to see an end in sight for it.
Southern Rail admits the combined action will make a big difference. In a statement, the company says these strikes will have a devastating impact on the South East economy and people's everyday lives, which will bring Southern to a standstill. We urge the union to continue our talks and resolve their dispute without causing further unnecessary grief to passengers. But one passenger group says the key to a resolution lies not with the company or the unions, but with the government.
It almost feels like they've got something to hide, and that's very worrying when there's so many people's lives being disrupted and essentially at stake with the ongoing disruption. It can't go on. The Department of Transport needs to step in, and there needs to be a review of that, because it's not happening on its own.
The involvement of the train drivers in this dispute is likely to be a game changer, because if Southern Rail can't operate its services, then hundreds of thousands of people will be stranded, and that will have an impact on the economy that may well force the government into action. Richard Slee, ITV News.
So, Southern admits it's going to be a nightmare for travellers over the next 6 weeks, and this row has, of course, already been going on for some time. Southern Rail is run by Govia Thameslink Railway, covering Southern, Thameslink and the Gatwick Express. It says it's lost £38 million already over the past 6 months. Stacey.
Thanks, Fred. Well, today the Department for Transport released the latest rail statistics, and it's not good news about overcrowding. 70% of the journeys into London are made from the southeast, Waterloo and Victoria, the busiest stations, with almost 200 million travellers passing through each year. And during the peak 3-hour period in the morning, that's 7 a.m. to 10 a.m, London stations are used by almost 600,000 people. And that means on a typical weekday, our network is operating almost 6% above capacity. And that's why it's standing room only. Fred.
Well, to London and Mick Whelan, General Secretary of ASLEF. Mr. Whelan, thanks for being there, but 9 days' worth of strikes, presumably an apology from you tonight to rail passengers for all their troubles.
I spent most of my life, Fred, as you know, trying to promote the railway industry, making a safe industry and getting investment into the industry. It's not in our interest to disadvantage or hurt the travelling public.
But I mean, this is a service with overcrowding, delayed, cancelled trains. Some people have had to leave their jobs because of all this. It's a real sorry mess, isn't it?
Well, it has been for the best part of a year, and it's been driven by the DfT and government, and Southern have been the tools of the government in relation to this. It's no gain for us. This isn't about pay, this isn't about conditions, this is about safety.
But Southern Rail wants you and the RMT to return to the negotiating table. Why won't you?
Well, that's interesting they've told you that. If only they'd tell me that.
You see, I mean, why deliberately do all this strike action over Christmas and the New Year? It's very Scrooge-like, isn't it?
Well, if you look at the dates we put on, having waited a year to get some ballot dates on because we were kept out of it by the High Courts, the reality is we haven't targeted Christmas and the New Year if you look at the dates that we've actually put on.
No, but I mean, New Year's Eve is an example, and the run-up to Christmas, the timing is awful, surely.
Well, you can only deal with issues when they come to you. And the fact is, this issue is contemporaneous, it's now, and we have to deal with the matters arising as and when we can.
Well, bottom line is, when's all this going to get sorted? How is it going to get sorted? Tell us.
By manning and operating the trains in a safe manner that makes it safe for my people not to be lone workers and makes it safe for the travelling public in the 21st century to feel that for the money they pay and the investment that goes in, that they're securing what they do.
So will you get back around the table as soon as possible? Hopefully before Christmas, get this thing sorted?
Always willing to get around the table, always looking for a resolution.
We shall wait and see. Mick Whelan, good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's cross now to ITV's political correspondent David Wood. David, why aren't MPs stripping Southern of its franchise?
Like with everything here, it isn't that simple, but if the government believes and could prove that Southern isn't operating the services that it's paying it to properly and safely, well then it could simply strip it of its franchise. It's done that in other parts of the country before. But the tone of the statement from the government today responding to these latest strikes really seems to put the blame for the problems on the Southern services at the unions, suggesting that the argument is all about who presses the button to close the door, and that by doing this the unions are trying to drag the railway network backwards as opposed to the government who are trying to modernise it, and that trains with driver-operated doors operate perfectly safely elsewhere in the country. But certainly commuters are getting cross and they're getting in touch with their MPs. Let's hear from two of those MPs.
This is the unions playing at militancy, and it's absolutely doing nothing for our constituents, and the unions really should just put the passengers in the front of their minds at long last and get rid of this nonsense and get back to work.
I can't really understand what the issue is in terms of why we can't get back round the table and sort this out. You know, what makes it so bad that the unions, both the RMT and ASLEF, won't get back round the table and try and resolve this for the sake of passengers?
So what now for commuters?
Well, in the immediate term, nothing really changes. We now know there are strikes planned into 2017, and that fact, I think, is focusing minds. It's certainly getting headlines again, and the pressure is beginning to increase on the government. The government has said that if you're stuck on a Southern train and delayed by more than 15 minutes, well, you can claim compensation. That's a shorter period of time to elsewhere on the country's rail network. But I have to say, having covered various angles of this story over the past few months, commuters, passengers are getting more and more angry. And it's not just angry at the unions or Southern. I think anger is beginning to turn towards the government as well. They are desperate, really, for a solution. Some people aren't even able to get home to tuck their youngsters into bed at night if they've been working here in the capital. So I think a focusing of minds and the pressure is beginning to increase on all sides involved.
David Wood, thanks very much for that.
So, to confirm then, ASLEF drivers will strike on Tuesday the 13th, Wednesday the 14th and Friday the 16th of December. Then a 6-day strike from Monday the 9th until Saturday the 14th of January.
RMT guards will strike next Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. That's the 6th to the 8th of December. Then again on Thursday the 22nd, Friday the 23rd and Saturday the 24th of December. And that, of course, is Christmas Eve.
And this will be followed by walkouts on Saturday the 31st of December, Sunday the 1st and Monday the 2nd of January.
Well, on our Facebook page, some very strong views. Craig Benny says, sack all of the strikers. Enough is enough. They're taking the mickey now, and it's the public that's suffering.
Claire Marshall T says, Southern Rail is a disgrace. I think something should happen now to stop any more strikes. The company clearly doesn't care about its passengers. Boycott the company. Plenty more comments where they come from. Thank Thank you very much. More on the planned strikes and how they could affect you on our website, itv.com/Meridian. In other news, the chief executive of